The hidden camera footage was locked in a vault for 32 years, too disturbing and too dangerous for public release. In September 1989, Paul McCartney and Linda had infiltrated Smithfield Meat Processing in East London, posing as potential investors while secretly recording what they witnessed inside. What they discovered wasn't just standard slaughterhouse operations. It was systematic animal abuse, illegal practices, and a cover-up that reached the highest levels of government. When industry executives discovered Paul's identity and realized what he'd recorded, the death threats began immediately. The footage Paul captured that day would traumatize him so severely that he couldn't speak for 3 days afterward. Linda later described finding Paul in their home studio, sitting motionless at the piano, tears streaming down his face as he tried to process what they'd witnessed. But the personal trauma was nothing compared to the danger they'd unknowingly walked into. Because the illegal activities at Smithfield weren't just about animal cruelty. They involved government officials, organized crime, and a conspiracy that made Paul McCartney a target for elimination. If you love discovering the untold stories behind music history's most dangerous investigations, you need to hear this. Because sometimes standing up for what's right means putting everything at risk, and sometimes the price of exposing the truth is higher than anyone should have to pay. McCartney Farm, Sussex, August 1989. Paul McCartney hadn't slept properly in weeks. Reports had been filtering in from animal rights activists about horrific conditions at slaughterhouses across Britain, but authorities were refusing to investigate. Companies were denying access to inspectors, and whistleblowers were being silenced through legal intimidation. "We need proof," Paul told Linda, as they sat in their kitchen, surrounded by investigation reports and photographs that made Linda sick to look at. Real evidence that can't be dismissed or buried. Linda, an experienced photographer, had been documenting factory farming for years, but always from the outside. "Paul, what you're suggesting is incredibly dangerous. These aren't just businesses. Some of these operations have connections to organized crime. If they catch us filming, then we make sure they don't catch us," Paul replied, with a determination Linda had rarely seen. "I can't keep writing songs about peace and love while animals are being tortured in our name. I have to do something." The plan they developed was sophisticated and dangerous. Paul would pose as James Martin, a wealthy investor interested in purchasing processing facilities. Linda would be his business partner, equipped with hidden cameras sewn into her clothing. They'd request a tour of Smithfield Meat Processing, one of the largest and most secretive operations in London. Smithfield Meat Processing, East London, September 12, 1989, 2:30 p.m. Paul had disguised his appearance with a beard, different hairstyle, and glasses. Linda wore a conservative business suit with tiny cameras hidden in her lapel and handbag. To company executives, they appeared to be exactly what they claimed: potential investors with serious money to spend. "Mr. Martin, Mrs. Martin, welcome to Smithfield," said facility manager Derek Thompson, a large man with cold eyes and blood-stained overalls. "I understand you're interested in our operation." Paul forced himself to smile and play the role. "We're looking to expand into meat processing. We've heard impressive things about your efficiency and discretion." Thompson's expression suggested he understood the coded language. "We pride ourselves on getting results, regardless of obstacles. Let me show you how we operate." What they saw in the first 30 minutes was bad enough. Overcrowded holding pens, animals showing signs of disease and distress, workers using electric prods with obvious cruelty. But Linda's hidden cameras captured something much worse as Thompson led them deeper into the facility. Smithfield basement level, 3:45 p.m. in the basement of the facility. Thompson showed them operations that were clearly illegal. Animals were being processed while still conscious, in direct violation of humane slaughter laws. Workers were injecting livestock with unlicensed growth hormones that had been banned for public health reasons. Most shocking of all, Linda's cameras recorded Thompson explaining how they disposed of diseased animals by mixing their meat with healthy livestock, creating a public health hazard that could affect thousands of consumers. "The inspectors don't come down here," Thompson bragged, unaware he was being recorded. "We have arrangements with certain officials. As long as the paperwork looks clean upstairs, nobody asks questions about our methods." Paul struggled to maintain his composure as they witnessed deliberate cruelty that went beyond efficiency into sadism. Workers were laughing as they tormented animals. Supervisors were encouraging abuse as entertainment. But it was what Thompson showed them next that made Paul realize they'd stumbled into something far more dangerous than animal cruelty. Thompson's office, 4:30 p.m. Thompson led them to his office, where he opened a filing cabinet filled with documents that Linda's hidden cameras recorded in detail. The papers showed a network of corruption involving government food inspectors, health officials, and what appeared to be organized crime figures. "This is how we maintain our efficiency," Thompson explained, showing Paul invoices for bribes paid to officials. Ministry of Agriculture, Health Department, even some MPs. Everyone gets their cut, and we get to operate without interference. The documents revealed that Smithfield was part of a larger network of facilities operating with complete immunity from regulation. They were processing diseased animals, using banned chemicals, and selling contaminated meat to major supermarket chains, all with government protection. Paul realized they weren't just witnessing animal abuse. They were documenting a conspiracy that endangered public health on a massive scale. "Of course, discretion is essential," Thompson continued, his tone becoming more menacing. "People who interfere with our arrangements, well, let's just say they find it's not worth the trouble." Smithfield exit, 5:15. PMAs. The tour concluded. Paul noticed Thompson studying his face more carefully. Something in Thompson's expression suggested recognition was dawning. "Have we met before, Mr. Martin? You look familiar." "I get that a lot," Paul replied, forcing casualness into his voice. "People say I look like that Beatles fellow." Thompson's eyes narrowed. "Paul McCartney. Yes, that's exactly who you look like." Paul felt Linda tense beside him. They were in serious danger, surrounded by people involved in organized crime, with evidence of a massive conspiracy hidden in Linda's cameras. "Well, thank you for the tour," Paul said, moving toward the exit. "We'll be in touch about investment opportunities." "Oh, I'm sure you will," Thompson said, but his tone was threatening rather than businesslike. Paul and Linda walked calmly to their car, but Paul could feel eyes watching them leave. Once they were driving away, Linda was shaking so badly she could barely hold the steering wheel. "Paul, I think he recognized you. We're in serious trouble." McCartney Farm, September 12, 1989, 8:30 p.m. back home. Paul and Linda reviewed the hidden camera footage. What they'd captured was devastating. Clear evidence of animal cruelty, food safety violations, government corruption, and criminal conspiracy. But Paul was so traumatized by what he'd witnessed that he couldn't function. The images of deliberate animal torture, combined with the realization of how widespread the corruption was, broke something inside him. "I can't get the sounds out of my head," Paul told Linda, sitting at his piano but unable to play. The screaming, the way they were laughing. How can human beings be so cruel? For 3 days, Paul barely spoke. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't make music. Linda found him staring out windows for hours, clearly replaying the horrors they'd witnessed. "It's like I saw the face of evil," Paul finally told her. Not just cruelty, but organized, systematic evil that reaches all the way to the government. September 15th, 1989. On their third day back, the phone calls started. The voice was calm, professional, terrifying. Mr. McCartney, you and your wife took an unauthorized tour of a private facility. Any footage or photographs from that visit need to be returned immediately. I don't know what you're talking about, Paul replied, though his hands were shaking. Sir, we know exactly what you recorded. We know what you think you saw. But I assure you, attempting to publicize any of that material would be unwise. For your family's safety. The line went dead. Paul realized they weren't dealing with just a slaughterhouse. They'd uncovered a criminal organization with the resources and connections to threaten a beetle with impunity. September 1989. March 1990, Paul and Linda went into a form of hiding, increasing security at their properties and avoiding public appearances. But they also began carefully sharing the footage with trusted animal rights organizations and investigative journalists. The response was immediate and terrifying. 3 journalists who received copies of the footage were threatened. One had his car vandalized. Another received photos of his children, with their faces circled in red ink. This isn't just about animal cruelty anymore, Linda told Paul. This is about a criminal conspiracy that reaches into the highest levels of government. They'll kill to protect it. Paul contacted Scotland Yard, but even there he encountered resistance. Some officials seemed genuinely shocked by the footage, but others clearly already knew about the situation and wanted it buried. Sir, while we appreciate your civic concern, Detective Chief Inspector Williams told Paul, I would strongly advise you to let proper authorities handle this matter. Civilian investigations can be dangerous. Paul understood the coded warning. Drop this investigation or face the consequences. March 1990. Despite the threats, some of the footage leaked to the media. The public reaction was immediate and explosive. Animal rights groups protested outside Smithfield facilities. Consumers boycotted supermarkets supplied by the network. Politicians demanded investigations. But the most significant development was that other insiders began coming forward. Workers at facilities across the network started providing additional evidence, protected by the media attention Paul's footage had generated. Within 6 months, 17 facilities were shut down. 43 officials resigned in disgrace, and criminal charges were filed against over 60 individuals, including Thompson and several government ministers. Present day. The Smithfield investigation fundamentally changed Paul McCartney. Friends noticed that his music became more serious, more focused on social justice issues. Albums like Off the Ground and Flaming Pie contained multiple references to environmental and animal rights themes. Paul was never the same after Smithfield, a family friend revealed. He'd seen how deep corruption could go, how systematic cruelty could become. It radicalized him in a way that nothing in his career had. Paul also became more security conscious, more careful about his public appearances, more aware of the personal risks that come with challenging powerful interests. But most importantly, the investigation launched Paul's lifelong commitment to animal rights activism. The footage he risked his life to obtain became the foundation for legislation that strengthened animal protection laws and oversight of food safety. The complete Smithfield footage has never been publicly released. Paul maintains that some images are too disturbing for general consumption, but excerpts have been used in educational programs and legislative hearings for over 30 years. The investigation also established a template for celebrity activism that goes beyond public statements to actual undercover investigation. Several other musicians and actors have since conducted similar operations, using Paul's methods as a model. Paul showed that celebrities can do more than just write checks or attend fundraisers, explained animal rights lawyer Sarah Collins. He put himself in real physical danger to gather evidence that authorities were refusing to collect. That kind of commitment changes everything. Thompson served 8 years in prison for corruption and was permanently banned from food industry employment. But before his sentencing, he made one final threat. McCartney thinks this is over, but there are networks he never discovered, people with longer memories than mine. Paul has never confirmed whether he continues to receive threats related to the Smithfield investigation, but security at his properties has remained extraordinarily high for over 30 years. Every time Paul McCartney performs Blackbird or speaks about social justice, insiders know he's drawing on the trauma and determination that came from his night at Smithfield. The investigation gave him a personal understanding of institutionalized cruelty that transformed his activism from celebrity involvement to personal crusade. Smithfield taught Paul that evil isn't just individual, it's systematic, explained Dr. Margaret Thompson, who has studied celebrity activism. It showed him that meaningful change requires more than famous people making statements. It requires evidence, courage, and the willingness to accept personal risk. The hidden camera footage that Paul and Linda risked their lives to obtain helped pass the Animal Welfare Act of 1992, strengthened food safety regulations, and established precedents for investigating agricultural corruption that remain in use today. But perhaps most importantly, the Smithfield investigation proved that when artists choose to use their platforms for justice rather than just entertainment, they can literally change the world, as long as they're willing to pay the price. Because sometimes the most important music isn't sung. It's the silent courage to document atrocities that others want to keep hidden. And sometimes the greatest performance is the one nobody sees. When you risk everything to give voice to those who cannot speak for themselves.